Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets, as well as houses in Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, in East Hampton, Amherst, and Hadley. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
That's correct, and we do so many communities because there's so much history around this area.
And so today we'll be talking about the Holyoke in the Spanish-American War. So how was Holyoke involved in the Spanish-American War?
All right, Major Crozier got together a group to fight the Spaniards, and of course they fought them in Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. And the group trained in Holyoke and then left for Cuba, and they fought there. Now, this is memorialized in Holyoke a lot, and that's great. Now, we're going to talk about the war death of Holyoke from the Spanish-American War, and I'm going to talk about Major Crozier himself, and also we're going to talk about some of the places where these barrels are located. All right. But Holyoke was involved in the Spanish-American War because it was very proud of the United States. After the Civil War, Holyoke had grown economically to a great level, and its pride has also gone up to a great level. And so Major Crozier brought all these men down there. It ended up that 8 of them would die because of this war. And they are honored in Holyoke, and we'll talk about that fact.
And where are the war deaths from Holyoke honored?
All right, they are honored in a special place. Most war deaths of Holyoke are honored in Veterans Park of Holyoke. That includes World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, and Civil War. The World War I veterans' deaths are honored in the War Memorial Building. But there's one more location, and that's the State Armory on Sargent Street. And inside there is a large plaque that honors all these men that died during the course of the Spanish-American War, either from injuries of the war or from illness due to that war. And sadly, that building is going to come down soon, I would assume. It has a double red X on it, which is a bad sign. It means the floors aren't able to sustain or use anymore. The back half already, the back 2/3 already fell. And so I worry about what's going to happen to this plaque. I wish they'll bring this plaque into the War Memorial Building and get a special room for it, just like the World War I war deaths has a special room inside that same building. So hopefully that can happen. It's not viewable now, and that's another problem. And even if they do open this place up, it might become private, and I think they should be exposed to the public in a public building, and that would be better at the War Memorial Building.
And before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out any more information or sign up for any of his private tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org, and there he has videos of the various stops along each tour, and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you want to sign up for any of his private tours, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they're great for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties. So getting back to our interview, tell us about Mayor Crozier.
Major Crozier. All right, Major Crozier, he was the guy that got the men together to go down to fight in this war in 1898 and 1899. And when he came back, he was hired by the Parks Department, and he was park supervisor around Holyoke for decades and decades. And so he got a few locations that he would honor the men that had died in the war. And so before Crozier Field in Holyoke was named that, It had many dedication places. It had a stone for the men that died in the war. It had trees planted for each man that died in the war. This park had been called Soldiers Field, and he also got many other locations around Holyoke dedicated to the people the men that had died in wars for Holyoke. When he died in 1938, the name of the Crozier Field was changed the next year, named after him. All right, from Soldiers Field to Crozier Field. And William Crozier, superintendent of Parks and Playground for 15 years, and veteran of the Spanish-American War and its leader, is buried in the Forest Hill Cemetery and is honored greatly just by having this beautiful park named after him. And I have a picture of him when he was very young on my webpage under Crozier Field, of course. And hopefully you can go and read his obituary, which I put on the Crozier Field tour page, and you can read more about his life.
And are there any war death burials in Holyoke from this war?
Okay, now, sure, there's some in Holyoke. 8 men from the Spanish-American War died due to that war. Some were left down in Cuba, but one, George Collier, he died like 9 days after coming back. The reason why, he didn't know it, but he had either yellow fever or malaria, and he would die from the illness of being at the battlefield. So, when he died, he was buried in Holyoke, and in fact, his stone that he originally buried under was taken away at some point, probably in the 1930s, and replaced with another stone. And they threw that stone in the waste pile, and it ended up being in a person's lawn next to the Holyoke Medical Center on Beach Street. And about 5 years ago, the woman called us and said, well, can the Preservation Society of Holyoke do something about this? This guy's burial stone is here. So Forest Hill Cemetery's administration went out there and returned it to its site. Now he has 2 gravestones. He has a more modern one, and he has the old one, and they both have a great look to them. Now, in a very particular and peculiar fashion, 2 of the men that died during the Spanish-American War from Holyoke are not buried in Holyoke, but they're buried in South Hadley. And remember, the Catholic churches of Holyoke often have cemeteries in South Hadley. And so if you go to the Precious Blood Cemetery, near one of its entrances towards the side, you're going to find 2 gravestones together. There would be Anatole Duguay and Joseph Bonneville. And these 2 people died in Cuba during the war, and they were buried in Cuba. But the next year, the Veteran Society of Holyoke didn't like the idea that they were buried on foreign soil. They wanted them back in the United States. So they got permission to bring them back, got the money together, and they were brought back on a ship. And when they got to Holyoke, they had a burial mass for both men together, and then they were brought out to South Hadley at the Precious Blood Cemetery and buried together. And so both stones are out there together. Their stones are 125 years old now, and so they got a lot of wear on them. But I figured out where they were about 5 years ago, and so Anatole Duguay, friends with Joseph Bonneville, both died during the Spanish-American War, are now buried together, and they have a beautiful site together. They're easy to find because they're the only ones near the entrance that are double stones that look the same. And so you can see on the left Duguay and on the right Bonneville. Thank you very much for listening.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And again, we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can tune to a large selection of our other podcasts and much more on his website. And again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We're coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Coleman. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this is more of a discussion.
And today we'll be talking about the wars of Holyoke. So, what wars have men from Holyoke fought in?
Well, Holyoke was accepted in 1850 as a town, 1873 as a city, and any war since then Hoyokers have fought in for the United States. So that includes the Civil War from 1861 to 1865, includes the Spanish-American War in 1898 and 1899, World War I from its United States entry in 1917 and 1918, World War II from the United States entry in December 1941 to 1945, the Korean War, and then the Vietnam War. Now, those are the wars that men have died. Some men have died in, but they've also been involved in the Afghanistan War, the two Iraq wars, and other wars along the way. Now, remember, before 1850, Holyoke was called Ireland Parish, and it was just the northernmost parish of Springfield and then West Springfield. And so, the American Revolutionary War also had men from Ireland Parish fighting that war, and only two people from Holyoke died during that war. So they're honored and lit, and we'll talk about how they're honored and what influence the wars had in Holyoke, and then whether they're really honored in the right way.
And quickly, before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org, and there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up your private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. And they're also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, Holyoke men have died in many wars. So where are they honored?
Now, there's various places around Holyoke that these men are honored. They're also honored by naming buildings, bridges, parks after them. So, as groups, they're honored in Veterans Park, and in particular, the Civil War death of Holyoke are honored there, the World War II deaths, the Vietnam War deaths, and the Korean War deaths, and also the Medal of Honor winners of Holyoke are honored there. At Memorial Building on Appleton Street in Holyoke, the World War I deaths of Holyoke are there by a plaque in a special room. And at the State Army Building on Sargent Street, the Spanish-American War deaths are honored by a special plaque in that location. Now, there's also parks that are honored at, for instance, Narcisse Deroy Park in front of the Kelly School is named after that person who died in 1918 in France due to his injuries from World War I. And the field behind that school, McNally Field, is named after William McNally. And there's other fields around the same thing. Also, Joseph Muller Bridge honors a person from Holyoke that died during World War II. In a general sense, the Vietnam Veteran Bridge between Holyoke and South Hadley honors all the Vietnam veterans of Massachusetts. It's the only Vietnam veteran bridge in Massachusetts.
And what influence have wars had on Holyoke?
Okay, directly not much because the war has never touched Holyoke, which is great. The Civil War and the American Revolutionary War did not happen here at all. But in another sense, This is a city of immigrants, and immigrants are always asked to go to war for their new country. And so a lot of them, Holyoke men, have died through the years or had their lives changed drastically. For instance, the Civil War, the population of Holyoke in 1860s was only about 3,000 maybe, and yet 55 men from Holyoke died by fighting during the Civil War. And so it's been harsh. Now, during World War II, that war affected every community around the United States. The fighting was so intense, and the need for the men was so intense that they started up special groups here to try to help the men over in Europe or in the Pacific, and they had victory gardens and so forth. So there's always the appeal for the public to help out, and Holyoke was always ready. And it's really nice to see Veterans Park devoted to them, and to see parks around the area devoted to them too.
And is there a systematic pattern to the way these men are honored in Holyoke?
Okay, by having a nice pattern of memorials within Veterans Park, there is, of course, right along the north-south axis, you see the Vietnam and Korean memorials at the north of the park. In the middle of the Civil War, veterans are honored on the Statue of Columbia, and towards the south of World War II. Now, if you look down the alleyway from this park towards the south, you'll see the War Memorial Building 2 city blocks away, and of course that's where the World War I memorial is for the men of Holyoke that died during that war. And only the Spanish-American War dead are off the pattern. Now, there are 2 men from Ireland Parish that died during the course of the Revolutionary War. They're not honored in Holyoke because they were officially people that had been born and lived in Springfield, and then for a couple of years in West Springfield when it broke away. And for that reason, they're not as honored. There's also a lot of grave sites around, and that's great. Almost every one of the old cemeteries around Holyoke have many veterans of these wars. If you go to, for instance, Elmwood Cemetery, I believe 20 veterans of the Revolutionary War are buried there. And this includes the family cemetery out in Rock Valley, the family cemetery in Smith's Ferry. They have other veterans from those old wars. But for more modern wars, if you go to Monte Della Rosa Cemetery, there's a line of 9 people in one row that all died due to World War II. So there's a lot of things that really honor the people.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. And you can tune to a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that is holyokecanaltour.org. And you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com.